Hello, Wolfpack. Not a massive amount to talk about in the market right now, and so I'm just going to be doing another Bitcoin update for today's video because I like uploading every day and keeping everyone kind of interested. There are a few things to talk about that have progressed, and a few thoughts that I want to go over and how I'm kind of reacting to the current situation on Bitcoin that some of you will probably already know. That I want to add some new ideas as well today. So what we're seeing right now on Bitcoin is obviously that drop down we've been seeing, but we've been trending downwards for a significant period of time, right? We've been trending downwards ever since the top here on around the 8th of November, so just over a month, right? A month and 4 days, 34 days of downwards trending, which is a long period of time, okay? You usually don't see much longer than that in one specific trend, right? Usually if you're going to trend downwards, it doesn't last that long, right? We trended downwards here from May 9th to around July 20th. So look, it does last, that was about 2.5 months, a long period of time on occasion. But most corrections we have, especially bull market corrections, last no longer than a month, right? Usually a couple or a few weeks. So this is a long correction. This is a substantial correction. And I don't particularly like how people are comparing it to September, although I do understand why they would do that, okay? My views in the market by now. If you're watching this video for the first time, you're new to the channel, I personally think that Bitcoin is going to be entering a bear market. I'm not, super confident with that. It's not the most confident thing I've ever said because obviously, it's a big claim to make that, it's basically I'm betting against the trend. So, of course, that's a big claim to make, and that's not really something you can be confident on until it's confirmed. But that is how I'm playing the market right now, okay? I've been bearish or cautious since 66K up here, since we rejected from this region, 65, 66K. We formed a lower high. Ever since we saw that red candle, I've been bearish in the market. Right, and my buyback zone, and I'm not going to be going over how I got to this because I've gone over it many times, right? But my buyback zone is 61K. At 61K, I will admit that the bear market prediction was incorrect, and will buy back into the market. And the way I see it, the way I'm seeing it from my personal situation, right? As I said, I've been cautious / bearish from 66K. If I buy back at 61K, I've still avoided a 5K loss, and I've still avoided the emotional, turmoil that goes through holding through, a downtrend for a month and a bit. Okay, altcoins are down 50% currently. This is not a small correction. So if I buy back at 61K, it's not necessarily about what I stand to gain from, which I'm actually in a favorable position, but it's what I've actually avoided doing, and I've avoided making very, very, very intense decisions with massively down altcoins. So I see my current situation on Bitcoin as favorable regardless, okay? If it goes further down, it's favorable because I can buy some cheap coins, okay? And if it goes up, then it passes my invalidation point of 61K. It's favorable because not only am I in a more favorable position than when I sold, I also avoided that emotional turmoil. So you have to take it into account when you're listening to my videos, right? Keep into account and take into account that this is my personal situation that I'm kind of projecting here. My personal opinions based off what is happening with my investments. So, just because I say I'm bearish, I think it's going to go down, that doesn't mean you need to do that. And just because I say I want to buy back at 61K, that doesn't mean you need to do that as well. I can see an entry zone, for example, if I remove the Bollinger Bands for a second and I pull up the bull market support band, let's see where another potential entry zone would be. Okay, so let's bring that back. Another potential entry zone would quite clearly be, and let's go to the weekly chart here so we can get a pretty good look, actually. Just 1 second, guys, sorry. We'll go to the weekly chart. An entry zone would be when we break this upwards trending level of support. So let's go back to the daily and I can show you that upwards trending level of support. It is this upwards trending line that has been trending upwards from July through September, and it's gone all the way up here, right? That is the line we need to break if you wanted to make a slightly more risky entry, because breaking that line would not only break above a major support zone and also break above, by the way, all of these downtrending lines, right? Breaking above this line here that I'm circling, right? It wouldn't just break above all the lines that I've drawn here. It would also break above the bull market support band, and hence that would be a pretty good entry zone in itself. And that would break about 53K as well. And once you break 53K, you're holding that region of support. So, if you're a little bit more, open to taking risk, and you'd be buying back at 53K or when we break that line. I personally don't see the need, right? Based on my personal financial situation, I don't see the need to take massive risks. It's just not, it's not something I need to do. And so, that's why I always offer alternate scenarios, right? So if you wanted to buy back in and you wanted to maximize your returns, but you're also maximizing your risk, right? 53k would be a good buying zone, or at least when we break above this trend line, okay? But for me, 61k is the conservative buying zone, because that would flip this entire downwards construction. So let's kind of delete some of these lines here and get a bit of a clearer view, because I know there's a lot of lines going on in this chart, but that's just how it is, right? There's lots of different support lines that we need to be kind of taking into consideration here. And Bitcoin looks like, in my opinion, it is kind of, and I know I said I don't like comparing it to September, but it is kind of forming something like we saw in September, right? A bit of a bottoming out region. And even in my bearish scenario, I have said that we need to see a dead cat bounce at some point, okay? We can't just drop straight down. It just can't happen like that. We can't just go straight down. It's just not how it works, right? When we go upwards, we see corrections, okay? And then we continue heading upwards. When we go downwards, we see bounces, and then we continue go downwards, right? So we need to see a bounce at some point, and that hasn't come yet, all right? And my problem with the 53k buyback scenarios, because I think if we do see a bounce right now from current regions, which is likely in my opinion, I think there is a chance that it actually take us above 53k, and we could see a fake out, right? We could see a little jump above this region, but then falling back, okay? We could see something like that, and that's why I'm not like 100% sure, that buying back once we get above this trend line is the best idea. I think you'd wait for even higher confirmation at 61, okay? And that would flip all of this, okay? But like right now, for example, we don't look too bad, okay? We have descending volume, right, in a downwards trend, which typically means that, the selling pressure is diminishing. There's not as many people selling anymore. The panic's kind of, settling. People are scared, but mostly people are just sitting on the fence. And then there's going to be a trigger point, in my personal opinion, like there was in September, where, there is that impulsive buying pressure, but I'm not thinking that's going to take us to new all-time highs, right? I think that's going to be a dead cat bounce. Now, whether we see it now, right now, right, whether we see it right now, or whether we see it down here in this green blotch, we come down and swing these lows and then see a bounce and a head and shoulders formation, is the big question. Like I said in my last video, the latter, where we come down and do this, is possible. That is the more bearish scenario, okay? Because if we come down here, first of all, we've got a lot more ground to make back up, and second of all, we're at massive risk of a head and shoulders pattern. That is the more bearish scenario. It's definitely possible, but what I would say is more likely, okay? So I'm thinking maybe this is 75% chance of happening, and the other one's 25%, okay? What I'm thinking is right now we've actually bottomed out on Bitcoin, and this is why we've got this kind of descending wedge formation on the RSI. Okay, you can see it's very similar to what we saw in September, and we're coming up, and we've just actually rejected off this wedge one last time here. Let's fix this up so we can get a bit of a better view here. We've actually just rejected off this wedge in this daily close, and we're currently testing the top of support, okay? So what we might see on Bitcoin is one last swoop downwards, okay? And then a bounce, right? That's probably what I would vouch for. Either that, or we just break straight through. But I think that if we were going to break straight through, this last green daily candle would have broken us above this RSI. I think we have one more test of a downside before we break up. That test of a downside may take us, back to 46.5k. It may take us down to 45k. Okay, somewhere within that region. Maybe not 45k, but somewhere within that region. But ultimately, I think that the bounce is on the way. It's just a matter of time, okay? And I know I don't like to use the fear greed index too much, because I can imagine that in 2018 the fear greed index was basically extreme fear for months and months and months until the bottom. But right now it is showing extreme fear, and that's some supporting evidence to see that we should be seeing a bounce soon. We have the MACD kind of almost reset to July levels, right? The RSI is reaching levels that we haven't seen since May. And we've got a pretty clear MACD cross incoming here within the next few days, if we can see that bullish price action. Once we break out of this triangle on the RSI, and you could even draw a larger RSI formation if you wanted to be more conservative. And once we break out of that white line, if you're a conservative investor, that's probably going to lead to a rally, right? The last two times we've seen RSI breakouts, it's led to the September breakout, and it's led to this the July breakout and the September breakout. Sorry, so we are due for a bounce, right? It's just a matter of time. It will happen. It's just about when it's going to happen, and if you wanted to be buying now, this would be my recommendation to you, okay? If you wanted to be buying now on Bitcoin, or altcoins, sorry, you probably could, right? You probably could buy. I would encourage you, however, to wait for a daily candle close above this kind of descending wedge formation on the RSI, and I would encourage you to wait for a bullish MACD cross, because usually after we see a bullish MACD cross, yeah, you might miss out on the first 5 to 10%, but we usually see a massive upwards trend, right? So we had a bullish MACD cross here in September, and you missed out on the initial rally from around 41.5k all the way to 44k. However, we went from 44k all the way up to 68k. So yeah, you missed out on the first little bit, but ultimately you still managed to you still managed to get a large return regardless. So waiting for confirmation is always probably the best move, unless you're 100% certain what's going to happen. And in this scenario, we're not actually 100% certain on what's going to happen. Will I be re-entering the market when we see that bounce? Yeah, for sure I will, okay? For sure. As I've said, I will be waiting for confirmation from this RSI, and I'll be re-entering with tight stop losses, and I'll be constantly looking at the charts, because I think that we're entering a downwards trend now. I think the upwards trend is ending, and I think this dead cat bounce will actually form a lower high, and that would be where most people become bearish on the market. So if this dead cat bounce that we're going to be seeing, whether it's from here or whether it's from here, right, forms a lower high that is lower than 68k, right, all of the bullish momentum in the market will die out as people start to realize that it's not looking good anymore, because that would be the equivalent of what we did here in May, okay? We had an upwards trend, and then we jumped up again in the dead cat bounce, and we formed a lower high, and that's where everyone flipped bearish, and then the people who didn't got caught out, and the market dropped massively, right? The people who were longing heavily here, as they thought it was going to go to new all-time highs, and the market dropped. They got long squeezed. So you don't want to be in that scenario. You want to be waiting for confirmations. You want to be keeping logical, okay? So I guess the overall kind of premise of this video is the fact that, it's kind of the same as the last video, in the sense that, whether we bounce here or whether we bounce down here at around 43 to 40k, it doesn't really matter. The overall kind of structure and how we're reacting to it is the same. We're waiting for the RSI breakout. We're waiting for the MACD cross. Once that happens, we'll re-enter very, very cautiously in relatively small positions, and wait to see what happens from there once we break 61k, or if you're if you're an aggressive investor, once we break 53k, that would be further re-entry signals. You don't want to be going in, all of your capital on one breakout trade, because it could go pretty wrong pretty fast. And on the occasion that it is a fake out, and we see another big drop, right, where we one big red candle like we saw here on the 4th of December, then you're screwed, right? You've lost 30 or 40% of your portfolio, and you probably won't even be able to log on to exchanges to sell. And if you do, the amount of motions you're going through, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it, all right? So play it safe. Ultimately, I do think a breakout is on the way. I don't think it's going to take us new all-time highs, as you would have known by now. But it's coming, and I'm looking at the charts regularly. Spending 10, 12 hours a day looking at charts, because this is one of the most important times you're going to be looking at the charts in this year, because this kind of, in my opinion, this breakout, this next bounce we're going to be seeing within the next month or two, and it's going to be over within the next month or two, will determine whether the bull market continues, or will determine whether we enter a bear market, or at least a bearish phase in the market, like I've been predicting. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.